Welcome back to lectures on water treatment process. In previous lectures, we studied screening. Screening here, screens will be there and they remove large materials. And after that, we studied sedimentation tank. In sedimentation tank, suspended particles whose specific gravities are more than that of water, they will settle down. And sedimentation aided coagulation, here colloidal particles which cannot settle due to gravity are forcibly settled by applying some coagulants, some chemicals. This process is called as sedimentation aided coagulation. And after that, filtration, smaller particles than the colloidal particles which are not settled in these tanks are filtered through sand media. Okay, this process we discussed, that is the filtration. Then after that, we are entering into disinfection process, the process of killing pathogenic bacteria. We have two types of bacteria in water. One is non-pathogenic and the second one is a pathogenic bacteria. Non-pathogenic bacteria are not harmful. Okay, they are harmless. And pathogenic bacteria create waterborne diseases. Therefore, we need to kill this pathogenic bacteria. To kill this pathogenic bacteria, we have one process. Okay, that process is called as disinfection or sterilization. Okay, to do this process, the chemicals used, they are called as disinfectants. Okay, the chemicals used in this process are used to kill the pathogenic bacteria are called as disinfectants. Okay, we have various methods that will be explained by Sandesh Shirod. I welcome him now.
So there are various methods involved in the methods of disinfection. The first one is boiling of water, treatment with excess lime, treatment with ozone, treatment with iodine and bromine, treatment with ultraviolet rays, treatment with potassium permanganate, that is KMnO4, treatment with silver. Treatment with silver is also known as electrocatalytic process. The first one is boiling of water. As it is already known to most of us, in most of the Indian homes, this process is widely followed. Water can be boiled for a long time to kill the bacteria, and this is an effective method of disinfection. As the temperature rises, the bacteria won't survive in the high temperature, so they are killed partially or completely. So this is one of the effective method of disinfection. But practically it is not feasible as huge amount of water is required for the public. So to heat the huge amount of water as required by the public, we require more amount of fuel, which is very costly. So practically it is not feasible. It can kill only the existing germs but does not take care of the possible contaminations in the future. It means when you heat the water, at that instant it kills all the germs present in the water, but we are not sure if it takes care of the future contamination. That is, in future if some germs enter the water, they are still there. They do not die because of the boiling that has been done in the earlier. So that is one problem with the boiling. So it is very ineffective for disinfecting public supply of water. So it is generally not used for treating the water that has to be supplied to the public, because huge amount of water is to be treated and it is not taking care of the future possible contaminations. But however, when there are epidemics that are born out of water, such as cholera and all, people in the homes are generally advised to boil the water and then drink it. So next we are going to study about treatment with excess lime. Treatment with excess lime. Here we are using the word excess lime. That means we are already using the lime in water in the softening process. Softening process is a process in which we reduce the hardness of the water. So lime is already used to treat the water. But if we add more amount of lime that is required, that is more than the amount required for softening, it is called excess lime. So the lime is in excess. So this is called excess lime treatment. And if you add more amount of lime, it can kill the bacteria also. The amount, for example, addition of 14 to 43 ppm of excess lime can remove the bacterial load by about 99.3 to 100%. So it is very effective in removing the bacteria. And addition of excess lime makes the water more alkaline. The process how it happens is when we add more amount of lime in the water becomes more alkaline. This environment is very harmful for the survival of bacteria. So in this environment, the bacteria won't survive. They may either die completely or at least they'll be killed partially. So this is one good method of disinfection. The merits and demerits we'll study now. Merits. Lime is abundantly available. So we all know limestone. From limestone, lime is extracted. So lime is easily available and we can use it. That is one merit. And it is practically feasible. Feasible means it is economical. There are no hard efforts to be put in this process to achieve the disinfection. So it is practically feasible. It is easy and economical. It is very effective in killing the bacteria. As we have studied in the previous slide, the amount of bacteria that can be removed from this process is about 99.3 to 100%. So it is very effective in killing the bacteria. Now we will study about the demerits. Excess lime needs to be removed before the water is supplied to the public. See, we are adding the lime, excess amount of lime to treat the water to kill the bacteria. But even there are some permissible limits for the amount of lime that has to be present in the water for drinking water. So that is the lime that is excess in the water, treated water, it has to be removed before the water is supplied to the public. It is done by the recarbonation process. It cannot protect the water from possible future contaminations. The demerit is almost same as that of boiling of water. The treatment with excess lime can take care of the contamination of water at that point of time. But if there are any possible contaminations in the future, this process won't work. So it is generally not used. Next one, we will study treatment with ozone. As all of us know, ozone is a gas, and as all of us don't know, it is very unstable gas. Ozone is a pungent smelling and faintly blue gas, and it is an excellent disinfectant. Let us know how ozone is manufactured or how it is produced. Ozone is produced by passing a high tension electric current through a stream of air in a closed chamber. The reaction given here explains how the ozone is prepared or produced. A high electric current is passed through the stream of air. Air is, that is oxygen, and it gets converted into ozone. O3 is the ozone. So 3 molecules of air get converted into 3 molecules of oxygen get converted into 2 molecules of ozone. As ozone is unstable, it cannot remain as a molecule for a longer time. So it readily breaks down. So it easily breaks down back into its original products, that is oxygen and nascent oxygen. Nascent oxygen is a single atom of oxygen. So it is here oxygen is a molecule O2. So there are 2 atoms of oxygen and they make a molecule of oxygen. But here it is single. So it is called nascent oxygen. The nascent oxygen, it is a powerful oxidizing agent. Oxidizing agent in the sense it adds oxygen to some other compound or element and oxidizes it. So by oxidizing, it removes the organic matter as well as bacteria from the water. This is how the water can be disinfected with ozone. Ozone gas is manufactured and bubbled through the water contained in a sterilizing chamber from an inlet. The ozonized water comes out through the outlet at the top. So the ozone gas that is manufactured, it is bubbled. It is forced through the water in a container, that is a sterilizing chamber from an inlet, and the water that is ozonized, that is treated with ozone, comes out through the outlet from the top. About 2 to 3 ppm of ozone is generally consumed to obtain a residual ozone of 0.1 ppm after a contact period of 10 minutes. So the dose of ozone generally what the people use in this process is 2 to 3 ppm of ozone. It is generally used for about contact period of about 10 minutes. So 0.1 ppm of residual ozone will give the same yellow color as is given by 0.15 ppm of residual chlorine. So residual ozone in the sense even after treating the water with ozone, some amount of ozone will be left in the water that has been treated. So the color that we get after after the after 0.1 ppm 1 ppm of residual ozone, it will be yellow color. That yellow color will be having the same amount of it will be of same color when which is produced by 0.15 ppm of residual chlorine. Ozone is largely used in France and Russia. In India, generally it is usually it is used in Chandigarh, and other cities do not prefer it. The merits and demerits of ozone. Merits: as ozone is unstable, nothing remains in water by the time it reaches the distribution system. So, as it is unstable, we all know it does not remain in the water, and by the time it reaches the distribution system, it almost escapes. So there are no possibility of residual being present in the treated water. And the next merit is, in addition to removing the bacteria, ozone also removes the color, taste and odor. So apart from removing the bacteria, ozone also removes color, taste and odor. Odor is the smell. Ozonized water is tasty and pleasant, unlike the chlorinated water. So the ozone is a gas and it makes the water tasty and a little bit pleasant or pleasing to drink. But chlorinated water will be having a little bad taste, as we all know. And next we'll study about the demerits. Demerits, as we all know, it is very costly because ozone has to be produced. It is not easily available. So first it has to be produced, and that for the production we need electricity. We have seen in that previous reaction we need electricity, and obviously electricity is costly. So next is it requires electricity, and ozone can't be supplied easily unlike chlorine. Ozonizer has to be installed for this purpose. So to produce ozone, we require equipment called ozonizer through which it has to be produced. But chlorine, we have plenty of chlorine available in the form of tablets, pills, whatever. So it can be easily supplied, but ozone can't be supplied easily. That is one problem with this method, and it is less efficient than chlorine in killing the bacteria. So chlorine is more efficient than ozone in killing the bacteria. And if electricity supply is cut here, if the electricity supply is cut, ozone production will be stopped. So there will be no continuous supply of ozone in this process. That is also one problem. And it does not ensure safety against possible future contaminations, as no residuals can be maintained since it is highly unstable. So it means in the future, if any possible contaminations or if any pathogens enter the water, they do not die because there are hardly any residuals of ozone left, because ozone is highly unstable. It evaporates, it just goes. So there are chances of the water getting polluted. I mean, there are chances of pathogens entering the water in the future. So that is one demerit of this process. Next, we are studying about treatment with iodine and bromine. Addition of iodine and bromine disinfects water by killing the pathogenic bacteria. This is what is done in disinfection. Pathogens are killed and the water is disinfected. Their quantity can be limited to about 8 ppm and a contact period of 5 minutes. This is the general dose of iodine and bromine. They are put in about 8 ppm, and they are given a contact period of about 5 minutes. They're very handy as they're also available in the form of pills nowadays. So as you can see in the picture, they're available in the form of pills. This is iodine and this is bromine. So they can be used very easily and they are very helpful. They are not used for treating large scale public supplies. They can be used for treating small water supplies for army troops, private plants, swimming pools, etc. Here, generally, when the army people go out on a on any mission, if they have to drink water from any stream that is passing by near them, they put this iodine or bromine pills and they use it and they do this temporary disinfection and then use the water for drinking. Next one, we are studying about treatment with UV rays. UV rays, as we all know, it is ultraviolet rays. Sun is the best source of ultraviolet rays. We all know that. UV rays are highly effective in killing all types of bacteria, yielding truly sterilized water. So the best thing that UV rays does is that it is highly effective in killing all types of bacteria. So when you kill almost all types of bacteria, the water that is available is almost completely sterilized. So there are almost no bacteria in it. The water to be treated with UV rays should be less turbid and low in color. So the condition for treating the water with ultraviolet rays is that the water should be less turbid. It should be less than the turbidity of the water should be less than 15 mg per liter, and the water should preferably be colorless. Water is passed several times through the quartz tubes emitting UV rays. Here you can see this is a quartz tube which emits UV rays. The water is passed several times around the quartz bulb. These are the quartz bulb emitting UV rays. So the water is passed around it for many times. Then the water gets treated. The depth of water over the bulb should not exceed 10 centimeter. The depth of water over these bulbs should not exceed 10 centimeter as UV rays can effectively penetrate only up to the depth of 10 centimeter. So beyond 10 centimeter, the UV rays penetration will become ineffective. Sterilization with UV rays does not impart any additional taste or odor to the water, so no chemicals are added. So the good thing about UV rays treatment is when the water is sterilized with UV rays, it does not impart any taste or smell to the water because there are no chemicals added in it. So that is one good thing about it. The merits of treating the water with ultraviolet rays are as follows. No additional chemicals are added. So as I said, there are no chemicals added. So that means there is no extra taste or any smell coming out of the treated water. It has ample scope for treating small water quantities in hospitals and dispensaries for surgical uses, swimming pools. So in many swimming pools and private hospitals and dispensaries or labs, surgical labs, they use this as a immediate treatment for disinfection of water. It can also be used to treat drinking water in regions where the cost is a minor factor. Ultraviolet, this is a very costly process, but in developed countries or in some private firms where cost is a minor factor, this method can be effectively used as it is highly effective. And there are some demerits also. It is very costly and needs technical know-how. As we all know, treatment of producing these ultraviolet rays and it's very highly costly, and it also needs technical expertise. People, highly skilled people who have technical knowledge are required for this. It is unsuitable for treating large-scale public supplies as it is costly to treat the large amount of water required for public supplies. It is very difficult, so it is unsuitable for treating the large-scale public supplies. There are possibilities of interruptions due to failure of electricity. See, if the electricity supply gets interrupted, then the production of ultraviolet rays also get affected. So that also affects the treatment with ultraviolet rays. So that these are the merits and demerits. So potassium permanganate, the chemical formula we all know, it is KMnO4. It is basically a salt containing potassium and manganese ions. It is generally used for disinfecting well water supplies in villages which are contaminated with lesser amount of bacteria. So in the villages, people usually draw water from the wells, open wells. So in such cases, the potassium permanganate is used to treat the water, and because it is containing lesser amounts of bacteria compared to the urban areas. Besides killing the bacteria, it also oxidizes the taste producing organic matter present in the water. So apart from killing the bacteria, potassium permanganate, it also oxidizes the organic matter which produces taste, which is responsible for the taste of water. It also oxidizes that organic matter. Therefore, it is sometimes also added in small doses even to the filtered and chlorinated water. So to impart taste, some good taste to the water, even after filtration and chlorination, potassium permanganate is added in small quantities. It can also be used as algicide and for removing color and iron from water. Algicide is something that kills algae. So potassium permanganate can be used to kill the or destroy the algae present in water and also to remove the color and iron from the water. Small amount of KMnO4 is dissolved in a bucket of water and is mixed with the well water thoroughly. This produces pink color. So the process of making this reaction is such that a small amount of KMnO4 is taken and mixed in a bucket of water, and this solution is mixed in the well water thoroughly. After mixing, it produces the pink color. If the pink color disappears, it means that there is more amount of ionic matter present in the water. So we have to add more amount of potassium permanganate. We should add the potassium permanganate until such state that the pink color does not disappear and it stands. So the appearance of pink color indicates that the organic matter has vanished. The well should not be used for at least 48 hours, that is 2 days, after the addition of potassium permanganate. Once the potassium permanganate is added to the well water and it is treated, the public should not use the water for at least 2 days. Its normal doses vary from 1 to 2 mg per liter with a contact period of 4 to 6 hours. So for every 1 liter, 1 to 2 milligrams of potassium permanganate is added and it is allowed to react for about 4 to 6 hours. That is the general dose and contact period of potassium permanganate. Due to the demerits mentioned in the next page, in the next section, it is not satisfactory and not recommended except for some limited use in the rural areas. So we'll see what are the merits and demerits now. The merits of this process is it is cheap, handy and quite useful. Potassium permanganate is generally it is very cheap and it is easily available in the medical shops and all. So it can be very handy and quite useful when it is very urgent. It can possibly remove 100% pathogens causing cholera. So the disease causing organisms, the cholera disease causing organisms can completely be removed by using potassium permanganate. The demerits are it cannot guarantee 100% removal of bacteria. So don't confuse with the merit, that is 100% pathogens causing cholera and demerit. In the merit it says the pathogens that cause only cholera can be removed completely, but in the demerits it is saying that it cannot guarantee 100% removal of bacteria. So any other bacteria other than those which are causing cholera, they cannot be removed 100% efficiently. So that is one demerit of this process. And with the passage of time, the water that has been treated with potassium permanganate, it produces a PPT, that is precipitate, which is dark brown in color. And to remove this precipitate, it is very difficult. It cannot be removed without scouring. So that is one demerit. Next we will study about treatment with silver. This is also called as electrocatadin process. In this method, metallic silver ions are introduced into the water by passing through a tube containing solid silver electrodes, which are connected to a direct current supply of about 1.5 volts. So there are electrodes which are made up of silver. They are solid silver electrodes, and water is passed through the tube. These electrodes are enclosed in a tube, and water is passed through these tubes. And these electrodes are connected to a current supply of 1.5 volts. The silver ions are having a strong germicidal action. Germicide is something that kills germs. So the silver ions have strong germicidal action, and thus it acts as disinfectant. If you can remember, when all children are small, when they are babies, they are fed with a silver spoon. Just because silver is disinfectant, it can act as disinfectant, and it protects the baby from any possible pathogens. So usually the babies are fed any food or water from the silver spoon. And generally even the babies are given some silver chains to wear or silver bracelets to wear in their hands, because to keep away the germs from the babies. So that is the same reason why silver ions can be also used to treat the water. The recommended silver dose may vary between 0.05 to 0.1 mg per liter. So the general dose for this process is, per every 1 liter you can use 0.05 to 0.1 milligrams of silver ions. The recommended contact period may vary between 15 minutes to 3 hours. So depending on the various types of processes, various stages of disinfection, the contact period may vary from 15 minutes to 3 hours. Now we'll study the merits and demerits of this process. The merits are as follows. It does not impart any taste and odor to the treated water. So the one good thing about this process is it does not add any extra taste or smell to the water that has been treated. So that is one good thing. It does not produce any harmful effect on human body. So there is no any side effects of using silver to treat the water. It also removes algae. So even silver is algaecidal. Its germicidal property is retained for a considerable time, thus allowing some safeguard against future contamination. In all the processes that we have seen so far, there was doubt if they can safeguard the water in the future also. So there were doubts hovering around it. But in this case, it is considerably good compared to the other methods, because it can safeguard against future contaminations. And we will study the demerits now. It is very costly. As we all know, silver is it's a very costly metal. So it's used as ornaments and all. So it's very costly process. So if cost is not a big factor in high companies, then this process can be employed. Else it is very difficult to employ this process. So as it is costly, it is not adopted for treating the public supplies, because public supplies should be done in large quantities, and using silver in such large quantities is not affordable for the government. The water has to be pre-treated to remove the suspended organic matter and hydrogen sulfide before using this disinfectant. So for silver to act effectively, to kill the pathogens effectively from the water should be pre-treated. That is, the water, any suspended organic matter or any hydrogen sulfide that is present in the water should be removed from the water, and then the silver can act efficiently. Otherwise it will become inefficient. So thank you. If you have any queries, you can ask.